Hey guys, Naz here. So today I'm going to be taking you through part one of my Making a Life-Size Pony series. I'm going to be making Twilight Sparkle as this life-size pony, so I thought I would take you through pretty much the entire process because it's going to give me a lot of content to cover. Life-size ponies are a lot more work than a standard size one for many reasons. So this episode, or this part of the series, will be an overview of what I'm planning to do, and it might give you a bit of an idea of the tutorials that will be upcoming as I go through making Twilight. So as you might have seen recently, I've been making a lot of ponies, and I've been doing this to sort of get my pony pattern as polished as I can before I take on making Twilight, because she's going to be so large and I want her to sort of be as polished as possible. She's such a big commission. So I've been working on my pattern, obviously. I've made it so that there is no belly gusset on my pattern. I've changed it so that this leg style has this 3D element at the top. I've completely reworked how my pony heads work. So I'm pretty happy with how my pattern is at the moment. There's only a couple of things I need to tweak before I make Twilight. But one thing I want to do for her is I want her to have rotating joints. So I want her front legs to be separate, and I want them to be able to rotate at this point so that they can sort of come out like this sort of thing. And I want her back legs to be separate, joining at the middle to her torso so that they too can rotate forward and back. And the reason why I'm doing this is the commissioner wanted her to be able to both lay down and stand up. And with my current ponies, you can sort of force them to lay down, but I don't really like how it looks. It really deforms their legs. They sort of bend here at a strange angle, so it's kind of an unnatural way for them to lay down. So I thought that I would try something a little bit different and try these joints to see if I can get her to lay down and stand up a little bit more naturally without having that sort of bending and unnatural look when her legs bend forward and back to lie down. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making a small Twilight as a test for this. I will be modifying my current pattern to have these rotating joints. I'm hoping that it won't be too much work, but I'll definitely cover my process on Patreon and let you guys know how much I'm failing or winning with that one. So once I've completely made that small Twilight, I have all the hair patterned, I'll have her face and her embroidery finalised so I like how it looks, then I'll be ready to blow it up. So she's going to be roughly 3 foot tall. I'll work out exactly how tall she needs to be. There's been some sort of there's been more information come to light about how tall ponies actually are. I think they need to be a tiny bit shorter than my life-size Rainbow Dash that you may have seen. So for Twilight, I'll be doing the 3D style heart hooves like I've done on Rainbow Dash here. I also did a similar kind of hoof on my original life-size Rainbow Dash. It's much easier to do it on the life-size ponies than the small ones. It's very fiddly to do it on the small ponies, but here's a bit of an idea of what they'll look like. I'm just making a Starlight Glimmer right now, and she's going to have these same sort of hooves, but what I've actually done is I've done this heart-shaped stitching on my embroidery machine, so it's a little bit neater. It has sort of a uniform heart shape over every single hoof, and I'll be making a tutorial on how to make 3D hooves like that when I get around to making them on Twilight. What else? So I'm going to be doing her cutie mark and eyes with applique instead of embroidery. I do have an embroidery hoop now that's big enough to do life-size pony eyes and cutie marks with embroidery, but I do find that I don't like the look as much of large sections of embroidery. I prefer to have applique where possible, just because it's a bit of it's a bit neater and it doesn't use up so much thread. It's more of a uniform colour rather than having sort of this texture of the embroidery, which I think is more obvious the larger that you get. So I'm going to be doing her eyes the same as I did with my life-size Rainbow Dash, and those were all applique. and they came out really nice. I actually think they came out better than embroidery. So I'll be doing a tutorial on how to do applique eyes, and that will be for people who want to do large sets of eyes that don't have an embroidery machine big enough to do that. So you can do it all just by having a zigzag stitch on a standard sewing machine, and it can give results just as good as any sort of embroidery machine could. With her cutie mark, I'm going to be doing that with applique as well with Minky, so that it'll be a soft cutie mark, so that it'll sort of blend in with her coat. But I will be doing that in my embroidery machine, so I'll be doing applique but using the embroidery machine to do the stitching for me, just because it's a little bit neater. But with the eyes, I prefer to do a zigzag stitch that's very, very tiny and not so dense, so that it doesn't look like sort of lines outlining each section. It's almost invisible if you match the thread to the cotton or whatever you're using for the applique. So what else have we got? So with her hair, I'm going to be using, I think is it midnight blue or electric blue that's the paler one? One of those two for her blue, and then I'll be using fuchsia for the pink. And with the purple, since I made Rainbow Dash, I custom dyed this purple for her mane. The dark, the standard purple available in Minky, it's very dark and it's almost kind of blue. And I've really noticed that now that I've used this custom purple on Rainbow Dash. I thought it made a really big difference. So what I'm going to do is, ideally I'm going to custom dye this purple so it's a bit brighter, because I find that using the standard purple that comes with Shannon Minky, it blends in a little bit too much with the dark blue of her mane. So for all the lines in her mane and tail, what I would usually do on a small scale plush is I would usually do satin stitching, but because it's going to be such large areas, I'm going to try something else, and I'm going to try using bias binding, whatever it's called, bias edging, the stuff that you sort of put on the edge of skirts and things like that. Let me have a look. Bias tape. This kind of stuff here. So I'm just going to find sort of a dark navy blue, and I'm just going to do either zigzag or single stitch down each side to fix it in place. When I took some dressmaking classes, we made our own bias, and if it's made correctly, bias has a lot of wriggle to it. You can really bend it a whole lot. So I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble getting it to go into these swerves, and because it's going to be so large, these are going to be such large curves, I don't think it's going to have any problem bending into those shapes. I just wanted to try that because it'd be a bit more uniform than using thread. I should also take up a lot less thread, because this is not all going to be made of sort of densely stitched thread. It should be that bias, and then just do a straight stitch down each side. But I'm just going to have to test that because I haven't done that before and see how it works. But I'm hoping that that will be an easier option. So horn and ears, nothing really different to my usual stuff. The wings will probably be folded because she's going to be sort of a cuddly plush. I'm not sure if I'm going to be putting anything solid in her legs to keep them from sort of becoming noodly and loose. I'll talk to the commissioner about that and see what they think, because if I do put something solid in there, the legs are going to be more rigid, but they will sort of hold up better over time. What else have we got? With her tail, I've always sort of disliked the way that I've patterned Twilight's tail in just having two pieces and having this sharp edge down here. It usually comes out kind of not the nicest shape when you just use two pieces for the tail. It sort of bunches up down the bottom here and you don't get a very sharp look. But what I did notice when I was watching the movie and sort of gathering references, they've given Twilight and Tempest here sort of this width to the bottom of their tails, and I really like how that looks. I think that that will give sort of a more 3D rounded shape to her tail, but still being able to maintain the silhouette of her tail that we can see here. So I'm probably going to try and pattern her tail like this, and it should make it more shapely and just more appealing in general. But I think that's about it. I'll be scaling up the pattern after I make the small version. I'll be just using some basic algebra to work out, you know, what percentage I need to scale her up as to make her final size. I have plenty of purple minky here. Hopefully that will be enough. I have all the colours, I just need to custom dye these stripes, and I'll probably dye them after I cut them out, and then just chuck all the strips into a dye bath at the same time, so I'm not sort of attempting to dye, you know, 3 feet worth long of minky and then trying to cut all these pieces out of a large piece. I think that will be easier for me. But yeah, I'll just be using my projector to enlarge the pattern onto some large pieces of either card or paper. I'm probably going to go to an art store in the city, which is about 2.5 hours from me, but I'll try and go there in the next few weeks. They sell very large rolls of watercolour paper, which I found is actually excellent for tracing pattern pieces on because it's very thick and sturdy. That's what I traced my Lifesize Rainbow Dash pieces on when I made her, and then proceeded to never make another Lifesize pony using that pattern, so that was a little bit of a waste of time, but it is definitely easier to use them for tracing pattern pieces, unlike a normal piece of just standard computer paper or something like that. The watercolour paper isn't going to bend or really have much damage done to it if you are using a pen or a pencil to trace around the edges of it. But for her expression, she's going to have sort of a sultry, bedtime eyes sort of expression, so I'll workshop that with her commissioner and sort of work out what kind of expression we want to go with and make sure it looks really good, and fully test that out on the smaller twy. But I will have the smaller twy for sale once she's finished. I'm not really going to put a price on her yet until I see how much these joints make me cry, because it is going to be a lot more work than a standard sort of pony. That's another thing I'll be covering, is how to make custom joints. I've been working a lot with them lately, making them sort of from materials that you can find at any hardware store. So Twy will have this joint sort of on both sides, and then I'm looking to make her head rotatable at the neck joint here. So I'll probably make a separate video for that, like how to make very large custom plush joints, because that'll probably require using some sort of timber and very heavy duty bolts and nuts and things like that. But I'll test it out and I'll cover it if it works and let you guys know how to do it. But yeah, if you have any suggestions or things you definitely want me to cover while I'm making her as video tutorials, please send me a private message, don't be shy. The more suggestions I can get for video topics, the better. I really want to make sure to be thorough when I'm covering how I made her. I'll probably try and cover a tutorial on stuffing. I'll make a tutorial on patterning her mane and tail. What else can I do? I'm sure I'll think of a lot of them as I'm going, but I'll try and cover as many aspects as I possibly can while I'm making her. So anyway, thanks for listening to my rambling if you're still here, and I hope you enjoy sort of the progress images that'll be popping up as I start to make her. I'll be having a couple of weeks off with my partner. He's on annual leave as of, I think it's the end of next week. So I'll be off for a couple of weeks, but I'll probably use that time to be going to a lot of art and craft stores and fabric stores and things to get the materials for all my upcoming commissions, because I'm nearly finished with all my ponies essentially, and I need to get some sort of unusual materials to work with for these few final commissions. They're kind of out of the ordinary. So anyway, enough rambling. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions or suggestions for videos or aspects for me to cover, please send me a private message on Patreon and that'd be awesome. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next one. Bye!